One thing I've stumbled upon inside of this theory that I'm working on is the main problem with the rock cycle. Now, you can't see the problem by looking at this graph. You have igneous rocks melting into magma, heating and pressurizing into metamorphic rock, or cooling from the magma. And then you have igneous rock weathering and eroding as sediments, and you have compaction and cementation as sedimentary rocks. We have a lot of those on the beach where I live. And weathering erosion in the sediments is beach sand. And then if you take sedimentary rock and you heat it and pressurize it, it becomes metamorphic rock, and then you have metamorphic rock going to weathering and erosion. At first glance, this looks like a complete rock cycle. It's a completely closed system, and all geologists are familiar with this, and geophysicists are familiar with this rock cycle. But unfortunately, what they don't tell you is that when it comes to stars, you cannot just include liquid and solid material. They're forgetting this. They're forgetting gas and plasma. Sure, you can have a rock cycle inside of liquid and solid material, but you only really have two things that are happening in the rock cycle. You have freezing and melting, freezing and melting, freezing and melting. It's a closed loop. Unfortunately for the geologists, they're ignoring two other basic thermodynamic phases, gas and plasma. In order to make the rock cycle complete, it is a challenge to these people to include vaporization, condensation, sublimation, deposition, recombination, and ionization. A rock cycle, in other words, the actual explanation for how the land itself formed, has to be explained inside of all phases of matter. If you ignore a phase of matter for your explanations for how the ground formed, then you're not doing science, period. And any geologist that wants to challenge me on this, go ahead, because we have plasmatic objects in the universe by the billions, we have gaseous objects in the universe by the billions, and then we're also standing on liquid and solid material. If a geologist wants to tell me that gas and plasma are not important, they are telling me that they are not interested in the scientific method, and they are not interested in observation. This is a very valuable point I wanted to bring across to people, because this rock cycle here doesn't include gas and its phase transitions to liquid and solid material, and it doesn't include plasma, in which plasmatic material recombines and gas is ionized into plasmatic material. So in other words, this rock cycle is the end result of compartmentalization of the sciences. Geologists study the rock cycle and they ignore thermodynamics, which, as you can see here, you have two transitions here, you have two transitions here, and you have two transitions here, and then you have two here. This means, literally, that out of 8 types of transitions you have, they're ignoring 3/4 of them. They're ignoring 75% of all of thermodynamics in order to have the rock cycle be a complete process, a closed loop, if you will. Alright, I'll leave it to my readers to decide what they want to, be considered correct or possible. But that's a very important point I wanted to bring across, and it's a point I raised with my geology professor back in, 2004, 2005? Okay, I think that should sum it up.